I want you to picture a specific moment. It's uh it's a Sunday night. You're sitting on your couch. Maybe the TV is on in the background, but you aren't really watching it. You're just
Mm.
staring at the ceiling. And you've got that knot in your stomach, the Sunday scaries.
Oh, I know that not well. That feeling of impending doom that the weekend is over.
Right. And it's usually because you're thinking about Monday morning, you're thinking about walking into the office or, logging on to Slack and tackling a problem that you feel just totally unprepared for.
Yeah.
And here's the kicker. You look over at your wall and you see your diploma. Maybe it's nicely framed, maybe it's tucked in a drawer somewhere, but you spent 4 years, maybe 6, getting that piece of paper. You spent thousands of dollars.
You pulled all the all-nighters, you did all the reading.
You did everything you were supposed to do. You checked every single box. You followed the script perfectly. But now you're in the actual job, and this thought just hits you. I have absolutely no idea how to do this.
It's the classic disconnect, isn't it? The what did I just pay for moment that so many people have.
I think every professional listening to this has felt that at least once. And we assume it's our fault. We think, oh, maybe I didn't pay enough attention in Econ 101.
Or you blame the school.
Yeah.
If I'd just gone to a better school, an Ivy League school, I'd know what I'm doing right now.
Exactly. We personalize it. We think it's a bug in our specific operating system, or worse, that we just aren't smart enough.
Yeah.
But today, we are going to flip that idea on its head. What if I told you that this feeling, this incompetence, this gap between what you know and what you need to do, what if it isn't a bug? What if it is a feature?
Well,
What if it is the predictable result of a massive structural paradox that has been quietly building in the global economy for 50 years?
well, that is a much scarier thought in a way, but it's also more liberating because it means you aren't crazy.
You are not crazy.
Yeah.
You are just a standardized part in a machine that's fundamentally broken.
Right.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Today, we are unpacking a truly massive topic. We're looking at why the smartest organizations in the world are desperate for talent and why the institutions designed to produce that talent, the universities, seem to be getting worse at it the harder they try.
It's a paradox. The more we try to fix education to suit the market, the more we seem to break it.
And to guide us through this maze, we are doing a deep dive into a really groundbreaking piece of analysis. The article is titled Modern Ekonomien Jetkenlijk Crisis Universiteit. Or for our English listeners, that's University and the Competence Crisis of the Modern Economy.
And we have to be very specific about our guide today. This analysis comes from Ali Gulum, PhD, MCC.
And I think it's worth pausing on those credentials for a second because they really matter for this specific topic.
They really do.
You have the PhD, that's the academic rigor, the deep theory, the sociology, but then you have the MCC Master Certified Coach. That's the practical, on the ground, how do human beings actually function inside a business side of things?
It's so rare to find someone who speaks both of those languages fluently, Usually you get the academics in the ivory tower theorizing about labor markets.
Where you get the business gurus on LinkedIn complaining about kids these days.
Right. Dr. Gulum manages to bridge that gap. He dissects this crisis with what I can only call surgical precision.
He really does. He's not just complaining about woke universities or greedy corporations. He's taking us through history, through sociology and economic theory to show us why the global economy is screaming for creative thinking, yet universities seem to be churning out what he calls standardized customers.
Standardized customers. That phrase sent a chill down my spine when I first read it.
Me too. It
Yeah.
implies we aren't people. We're just products on a shelf.
It's brutal. And listen, for anyone listening who finds themselves nodding along today or who wants to see the data charts and the full bibliography we're going to be talking about, you need to go to the source.
You really do.
You should absolutely check out his website. It's www.aligulum.com. We'll remind you of that again later. But seriously, maybe keep that tab open.
So we have a lot of ground to cover. We've got the blame game. We have the history going all the way back to the 1950s. We have the McDonaldization of the university campus.
Where do we even begin with a problem this big?
I think we have to start with the noise, with the universal complaint that you hear everywhere.
The noise. You mean the shouting match between the CEOs and the beans?
Precisely. If you open up the business section of any newspaper or just scroll through LinkedIn for 5 minutes, what do you see?
Talent shortage. The skills gap. We can't find good people. Nobody wants to work. It's constant.
It's relentless. And Dr. Gulum grounds this panic in hard data. He points us to the World Economic Forum, the WEF. They release these Future of Jobs reports every few years.
Right.
He cites the 2023 and the 2025 reports specifically. And the numbers are Well, they're pretty staggering.
So give us the scope here. Are we talking about a few niche industries like, oh, we can't find enough quantum physicists?
No, no, this is universal.
Yeah.
The report analyzes 55 different economies and 22 distinct industrial sectors. And get this, in 52 out of those 55 economies,
Almost all of them.
and in 19 out of those 22 sectors, the competency gap is listed as the single biggest obstacle to business transformation.
The single biggest. So bigger than inflation. Bigger than supply chain issues or geopolitical risk.
In terms of transformation, so moving the business forward, innovating, adapting, yes. It carries a weight of over 60%. It's the #1 roadblock.
Wow.
And here is the crucial nuance that Dr. Ghulam highlights, and this is so important. When these companies say competency gap, they aren't talking about what we usually think of as skills.
Right. They aren't saying these graduates don't know how to do a VLOOKUP in Excel, or they don't know how to use the specific software.
Exactly. The routine cognitive skills, filing, calculating, basic coding, that's all fine. And frankly, AI is starting to do those things better and faster anyway.
That's a whole other can of worms.
It is. The gap is in the high-level stuff. The report specifically calls out two things: analytical thinking and creative thinking.
Okay, let's unbox that. Creative thinking. It sounds like such a buzzword. You hear it at every corporate retreat. Let's think outside the box, people. What does it actually look like in a boardroom?
It means the ability to look at a messy, unstructured problem, something that has no textbook answer, and synthesize a completely new solution.
So not just problem solving, but problem defining.
Yes. It's about navigating ambiguity. It's about asking the question that nobody else in the room even thought to ask. It's about connecting two completely unrelated ideas to create something new.
It's not just answering the test question correctly. It's realizing the test question itself is wrong or outdated.
Bingo. And that is what is missing. So you have these massive multinational corporations trying to pivot, trying to innovate, trying to survive in this crazy digital economy. And they look at their workforce, thousands of smart, highly educated people, and they basically say, we don't have the brains to do this.
That's a pretty harsh thing to say. We don't have the brains.
It is harsh, but it's the reality of the feedback we're seeing. So naturally, when a business has a supply problem, what do? They go to the supplier and they start screaming.
And the supplier, in this case, being the university.
Right. The corporate sector turns to higher ed and says, hey, we are paying you billions of dollars in tuition and grants and partnerships. Why aren't you sending us ready-to-work graduates? Why can't these kids think critically? Why do I have to spend 2 years training them how to think?
And meanwhile, you have the graduates, the students themselves. They're standing right in the middle of this.
And they are angry too, and rightfully so.
I mean, put yourself in their shoes. You're 22 years old. You're $50,000 in debt. You just spent 4 years writing papers on Shakespeare or macroeconomics because you were told this is the path to a good job.
This is the ticket.
You walk into an interview and the interviewer looks at you like you're from another planet because you don't have 5 years of creative problem-solving experience.
So the student then turns back to the university and says, hey, I bought the product. I paid the money. Why isn't this diploma working like a key card? Why are all the doors still locked?
It's a complete standoff. Everyone is pointing their finger at the university. The corporations say it's too academic and out of touch. The students say it's a ripoff.
And the inevitable solution, the one you hear from politicians, from consultants, from concerned parents, is always the same word: alignment.
Oh, I hate that word. Alignment. It sounds so corporate.
It sounds so benign and sensible, doesn't it? We need market alignment. We need an industry-relevant curriculum, the big one. We need to run the university like a business.
Yeah, it implies that the problem is just a simple drift, like the university just floated away into its ivory tower and we just need to grab the rope and pull it back to the real world.
But this is where Ollie Ghulam, PhD, MCC, throws a massive wrench in the gears. This is really the first big red pill moment of his entire article.
Okay, lay it on me.
He argues that this is not a simple supply and demand problem. You cannot just tweak a few course descriptions and fix this. He argues that the university has become the scapegoat.
A scapegoat for what exactly?
For a crisis that the market itself helped to create. His central thesis, and this is the part that requires us to really pay attention and maybe rethink everything, is that the problem isn't that universities haven't aligned with the market. The problem is that they have.
Wait, hang on, pause on that.
I know it's completely counterintuitive.
So you're saying that by trying to give businesses exactly what they asked for, universities somehow became worse at producing what businesses actually need?
That is the paradox in a nutshell. The market demanded efficiency. It demanded standardization. It demanded measurable outcomes. And for decades, the university said, okay, we can do that. They built these massive, efficient, standardized systems to deliver on that promise.
Okay.
But it turns out that efficient, standardized systems are terrible at producing messy, creative, independent thinkers.
So the market ordered a hamburger, got a perfectly standardized hamburger, and is now screaming, why isn't this a 5-star gourmet souffle?
That is actually a surprisingly accurate analogy.
Yeah.
They ordered fast food predictable, cheap, fast, and are genuinely shocked that they didn't get fine dining.
Okay, so if we accepted the order, if universities actually did change, when did that happen? Because when I think of university, I still think of, Dead Poets Society. I think of tweed jackets and old libraries and debating the meaning of life until 2 a.m.
See, that is the romantic image we all have. And frankly, that is still the image universities sell in their glossy brochures. But to understand how that image died and how we got into this trap, we have to go back in time.
Right.
We need to look at the history of how the modern university was forged. Dr. Gulam takes us through what I like to call a tale of two sociologies.
I love a good history lesson. Take us back.
We aren't going back to the Middle Ages. We're going back to the post-World War II era, the 1950s and 60s. This is where we see the first major tectonic shift. And it's described by the sociologist Martin Trau.
Martin Trau, okay.
He described the shift from elite education to mass education. The term he coined was massification.
Massification. Like I said, it sounds like a manufacturing term.
It essentially is. Before World War II, let's be really honest about what university was. It was a club. It was for the top 1%, maybe the top 3% of society.
The sons of aristocrats, the future prime ministers and captains of industry?
Exactly. It was about transmitting high culture. You went there to read Latin, to understand philosophy, to build character. It wasn't really about getting a job, because if you were there, you probably already had a job waiting for you at your father's firm or in the civil service.
So the goal was preserving culture,
Right.
seeking truth, that kind of lofty ideal.
Right. But after the war, the world changed completely. The industrial economy just exploded, and governments in the U.S., in Europe, everywhere, realized something critical.
What was that?
They realized that the old aristocracy wasn't big enough to run this new, complex machine. They needed engineers. They needed managers. They needed scientists and bureaucrats by the thousands.
They needed bodies, smart bodies, and lots of them.
So the mission of the university changed. It stopped being, let's make gentlemen, and it started being, let's make employees. And Trell points out that this wasn't just a change in numbers like, oh, let's just add more desks to the classroom. It was a fundamental change in the nature of the institution itself.
How so? What does that mean in practice?
Well, just imagine a seminar with 5 students and 1 professor. You can have a deep, rambling debate. You can spend 3 weeks on a single book. Now imagine a lecture hall with 500 students.
You can't debate. You have to lecture. You have to use multiple choice tests because there's no way you can grade 500 thoughtful essays every week.
Exactly. The very structure of learning changed to accommodate the new scale. The curriculum shifted to be more useful, more technical, and the government started pouring money in, expecting a clear economic return on that investment.
Which sounds good on paper, right? I mean, democratizing education, giving more people a shot at the middle class, who could possibly argue with that?
It sounds like progress.
Yeah.
And for a long time, it really felt like progress. The skills narrative was born right here. The idea is simple. You go to school, you learn a specific skill, you get a job using that skill, the economy grows, and everybody wins.
It's a simple, linear, feel-good story.
But then we run into the second sociologist in Dr. Gulam's analysis. And this is where the story gets a lot more complicated. Vandal Collins.
And I'm guessing Collins is the guy who comes in and crashes the party.
He brings the whole punch bowl down, yes. Collins looks at this neat and tidy skills narrative, and he calls it the technocracy myth.
The technocracy myth. Okay.
He asks a very simple but also a very dangerous question. He says, okay, we are sending millions of people to college to learn job skills, but are they actually learning job skills in the classroom?
I mean, on some level, yes. I studied journalism. I used journalism skills. I learned how to structure a story. I learned media law. That seems pretty direct.
But did you learn how to handle a source who is lying to your face? Did you learn how to navigate the brutal politics of a newsroom? Or did you learn that on your first day in your first real job?
Okay, that is a fair point. I learned the theory in class. I learned the actual job, the gut instinct, the survival skills in the newsroom by watching other people and making mistakes.
And that is Collins's central point. He argues that the vast majority of real job skills are learned on the job. You learn by doing. You learn by mimicking your boss. The actual technical content you learn in a university classroom, especially in a liberal arts or a general business degree, is rarely the thing you use day to day.
That feels incredibly cynical. If we aren't learning the skills, then why do employers demand the degree? Why can't I just walk in and say, hey, I'm smart and I learn fast, just train me? Why is the degree the absolute minimum requirement for almost every decent job now?
Because, Collins argues, the degree isn't a receipt for skills learned. It's a certificate of socialization.
A certificate of socialization.
Yes, Collins argues that what universities really provide is cultural currency.
Cultural currency. Okay, unpack that for me. What does that mean?
Think of the degree as a secret code. When an employer sees bachelor's degree on your resume, they aren't thinking, oh, wonderful, this person knows the history of the French Revolution. They are thinking, this person has been socialized. This person has propriety.
Propriety? Like good manners.
In a way,
Yeah.
it signals that you can sit still for 4 years. You can follow complex instructions without complaining too much. You can tolerate bureaucracy. You speak the language of the middle class. You dress a certain way. You aren't risky.
So it's a vetting mechanism. It's a gatekeeper to the white-collar world.
It is the ultimate gatekeeper. It allows employers to filter out huge numbers of people who might be difficult or uncultured without ever having to say anything explicitly discriminatory. It's a class signal. It proves you fit the mold.
But wait a minute. If the degree is just a signal of being elite, but we just talked about massification letting basically everyone in, doesn't that break the signal? If everyone has the signal, it's not a signal anymore.
Bingo. You just identified the concept of credential inflation.
It's basic economics, right? If everyone have a dollar, the dollar is worth less.
Exactly. Dr. Gulam highlights this perfectly in the text. Back in 1950, a high school diploma was a pretty good signal. It got you a decent job. But then everyone got one, so the signal moved up to the bachelor's degree.
And now, because of massification, pretty much everyone in the professional class has a bachelor's degree. So the signal is weak again.
Right. So to prove I'm really elite now, I need a master's or a PhD. Or maybe I don't just need any degree. I need my degree to be from a brand name university, an Ivy.
It becomes an arms race. You have to keep running faster and faster just to stay in the same place.
An arms race is the perfect term for it. And this creates a massive toxic tension in the mind of the student.
Because the student isn't dumb. They can feel this happening. They know the game.
They do. The university is standing at the front of the room saying, we are here to expand your mind. We are here for the pursuit of truth. But the student is sitting there thinking, I don't really care about truth right now. I'm here to buy the ticket. I need the stamp on my forehead that says employable, so I don't have to move back in with my parents.
The whole experience becomes purely transactional.
I pay the money, you give me the credential. The knowledge itself becomes secondary. It's just the annoying hurdle you have to jump over to get the real prize, which is the status.
And this transactional mindset, this is the fertile soil where the current crisis really started to grow.
It's the soil, but the fertilizer, the thing that made it all grow out of control, that came in the 1980s.
Ah, the 80s. Big hair, synthesizers, and radical economic reform.
New public management, NPM. Doesn't sound sexy, but this ideology changed the Western world. This was the era of the new right. Margaret Thatcher in the UK, Ronald Reagan in the US.
The whole government is the problem, not the solution mindset.
Exactly. The core belief was that the public sector, and that included universities, was bloated, inefficient, lazy, and unaccountable. They thought universities were just these ivory towers burning taxpayer money without producing any real results.
So starve the beast, cut the funding.
It was more than that. The idea was to inject business logic directly into public institutions. To fix the university, you had to force it to act like a corporation.
So, measuring performance, cutting costs, focusing on outputs, customer satisfaction, all that stuff.
All of it. Privatization, accountability metrics, managerialism. Universities were forced to become entrepreneurial. They had to start viewing themselves not as guardians of knowledge, but as actors in an economic skills market.
And they had to justify their existence not by creating a public good, but by showing their economic impact.
Yes, and this is where we get that crucial distinction Dr. Gulam cites from a 2025 paper by Kenny, the difference between efficiency and effectiveness.
This is such a key point.
It really is. The NPM reforms, you could argue, made universities more efficient.
Yeah.
They could process more students faster at a lower cost per head.
Like a factory speeding up the conveyor belt to increase output.
Exactly. But Kenny argues that in doing so, they became far less effective at their core mission.
Because you can process a lot of widgets efficiently, but educating a human being to think creatively isn't a widget-making process. It's messy. It's inefficient by nature.
It has to be. If you focus entirely on efficiency, you strip away the time for reflection, for deep debate, for the serendipitous, messy parts of learning that actually build critical thinking. And instead of focusing on that, universities started focusing on their shop window.
The shop window, meaning how they look to the outside world, their marketing.
Yes. They started obsessing over university rankings, marketing campaigns, and demonstrating their corporate alignment. And Dr. Gulam brings up this devastating critique from a writer named Readings from 1999 about the word excellence.
Oh, this part of the paper made me laugh out loud, even though it's actually tragic. You're talking about the parking lot story.
The parking lot. It is such a perfect, absurd example of how language loses its meaning. Readings points out that the word excellence became this empty, hollow piece of corporate jargon. It didn't mean intellectual rigor anymore. It just meant good performance at whatever we decide to measure.
So tell the story. It's too good not to share.
Cornell University won an Excellence Award. Now you might think, oh, wonderful. Did they cure a disease? Did they write the great American novel? Did a professor win a Nobel Prize? No. They won the award for their parking lot.
Laughs. I mean, listen, as anyone who's ever been to a big university knows, finding a parking spot on campus is a nightmare, so I get it. But winning an Excellence Award for it.
It signals a profound shift in values. It signals that the university is now, at its core, about customer service. If the customer wants a good parking spot, then excellence means giving them a good parking spot.
And if the customer wants an easy A,
then excellence might just mean giving them an easy A.
It's the customer service model of education, which is the perfect segue.
It leads us right into the next major theme of Dr. Gulam's paper, and maybe the most damaging theme of all, the student as customer.
This is the inevitable result of everything we just talked about, isn't it? If the university is a business and it's selling a product, which is the degree,
then the student is the buyer, and the customer is always.
Right.
This creates what Dr. Gulam calls a two-poled table of debate in the academic world. On one side, you have the supporters of this model. They say, this is great. It democratizes education. It forces lazy, tenured professors to be more responsive to student needs. No more ivory tower elites just ignoring the people paying their salaries.
Which, to be fair, has some validity. You want professors to care about their students. You don't want them to be aloof and unapproachable.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But the critics, on the other side of the table, argue that this mindset leads to something incredibly toxic: instrumentalism.
Instrumentalism, meaning the student starts to see education as just an instrument to get something else.
Yes. I paid my tuition. Now give me my A. It leads directly to grade inflation. It leads to lower academic rigor because, as a professor, you don't want to upset the client. You don't fail the client. You keep the client happy so they give you good evaluation scores and maybe donate as an alumni one day.
It fundamentally changes the relationship. A teacher is supposed to challenge you, maybe even make you uncomfortable to provoke growth. A service provider is supposed to make you comfortable, always.
Exactly. And Dr. Gulam mentions a specific study here that it blew my mind. It's almost satirical. It's so on the nose. The one about the shopping mall.
Oh, this was wild. Ahmed and Hassanain from 2020.
Yes. This was a serious academic study about designing university shopping malls in order to improve academic well-being.
Literally, putting a retail shopping mall inside the university campus.
Yes. And justifying it with the argument that a good shopping experience correlates with better academic outcomes. The argument is essentially, if the student can buy a nice latte and a new sweater between classes, they will be happier, and therefore they will learn better.
That's just astounding.
It shows how deeply we have normalized the idea that a university is just another place of consumption. We have accepted that a good shopping experience is part of a good education. And this brings us to the sociologist George Ritzer and his powerful concept of McDonaldization.
I love this term, McDonaldization. It conjures up such a specific and, frankly, unappetizing image for education.
That's a perfect metaphor. Ritzer argues that modern institutions, including universities, are adopting the core principles of a fast food chain.
Okay, let's break this down, because if we are saying universities have become like McDonald's, we need to look at the ingredients. Ritzer has 3 main pillars for this in the article, right?
He does, and they are predictability, calculability, and control. Let's start with predictability.
Predictability.
It's about a Big Mac. If you buy a Big Mac in Tokyo and then you fly to New York and you buy another Big Mac, What do you expect?
I expect it to taste exactly the same. Same sauce, same bun, same all be baddies, same wilted pickle.
Exactly. You don't want a surprise. You don't want the chef in Tokyo to get creative and add wasabi to the special sauce. You want the standard, predictable product. Ritzer argues universities are now doing the same thing. There's a frantic push for standardized curriculum.
So Intro to Economics should look exactly the same whether you take it with Professor Smith on a Tuesday or Professor Jones on a Thursday.
Yes, same textbook, same PowerPoint slides, same standardized tests. It minimizes risk and makes things fair. But it also completely kills the teachable moment.
Mm-hmm.
If a professor can't deviate from the script to follow an interesting question from a student, you lose the magic of discovery.
Okay, so that's predictability. What's the next pillar? Calculability.
This is the obsession with quantity over quality. In a fast food place, success is measured by billions and billions served. It's measured by the speed of service, how many cars go through the drive-thru.
And in a university.
Everything is measured in numbers.
Yeah.
Grades, rankings, citation indexes for professors.
Hmm.
And, of course, student satisfaction scores on a scale of 1 to 5.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how much did this philosophy lecture on the nature of existence fundamentally change your life?
Exactly. How do you quantify expanding your mind?
Yeah.
You can't. So instead, you count the things you can count. You count the number of words in an essay. You count attendance. The logic becomes, if you can't count it, it doesn't count.
It's a tragedy. Okay, and the final pillar is control.
This is about replacing unpredictable human judgment with non-human technology. In a McDonald's kitchen, the deep fryer beeps when the fries are done. You don't need a skilled chef with years of experience. You need a button pusher.
And in the university, how does that manifest?
Standardized testing like the SAT or GRE, rigid grading rubrics where points are assigned for specific keywords, online learning modules that track your every click and measure your engagement time. It's all about minimizing the risk of unpredictable human interaction between student and teacher.
But wait a minute, isn't that unpredictable human interaction where the actual spark of creativity comes from? Isn't that where the aha moments happen in that back and forth?
Exactly. And that is the terrible consequence Ritzer identifies. He calls this the irrationality of rationality. In our quest to make everything perfectly rational and efficient, we created a system that is fundamentally irrational because it kills the very thing it's supposed to be producing. Deep thought, cultural authenticity, creativity.
Which brings us finally to the central paradox. This is the core argument of Ali Gulum, PhD, MCCU.
This is the heart of the entire deep dive. This is where all these different threads, the history, the sociology, the economics, they all come together.
So let's lay it out clearly. On one side of the equation, we have the market. And the market is screaming, we need innovation, we need disruption, we need people who can think out of the box.
Yes, they want the analytical minds, the creative thinkers. They want the Michelin star chef who can invent a brand new dish out of thin air.
But on the other side of the equation, the very same market has spent the last 50 years forcing universities to adopt McDonaldization, standardization, efficiency, predictability, control.
Correct. The market imposed what Dr. Gulum calls educational Taylorism. Frederick Taylor was the father of scientific management for the factory floor. It's about breaking tasks down into tiny, repeatable, efficient steps to maximize output.
It's great for making Model T Fords. Everyone gets the same car, in black.
It is terrible for making artists, philosophers, or digital disruptors.
So the paradox is what? To put it as bluntly as possible.
The market is blaming the university for successfully doing exactly what the market told it to do for half a century.
Wow, that's actually tragic when you put it like that.
It is. The market said, be more efficient, be more standardized, treat your students like customers, and give them what they want. The university, under immense financial and political pressure, said, okay. They built these education factories.
And now the market looks at the output of these factories, these standardized, compliant, customer-satisfied students, and says, why aren't these widgets unique? Why do they all look the same? Where's the creativity?
You cannot mass-produce uniqueness. It's a contradiction in terms. And Dr. Gulum quotes a concept here that is really powerful in this context. Tina, there is no alternative.
This was the neoliberal slogan, right? Thatcher again.
Yes. The idea that this market-based, efficiency-obsessed approach is the only possible way to run a society. But Dr. Gulum's analysis shows that this approach is now cannibalizing the very human capital it needs to survive.
It's eating itself from the inside out.
Completely. When students are trained to treat their own education as a simple transaction, I pay money, I get diploma, They logically skip the intellectual engagement. They skip the struggle. They find the easiest path to the credential.
But the struggle is where the learning happens.
Critical thinking requires struggle. It requires being wrong. It requires frustration and unpredictability. If you remove all the struggle to make the customer happy, you remove the very possibility of deep learning.
It's like going to the gym and paying someone else to lift the weights for you, and then being shocked and angry that you aren't getting any stronger.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
You can buy the gym membership, which is the degree, but if you don't do the sweating and the straining, which is the intellectual struggle, you don't get the muscle, which is the critical thinking.
And this crisis isn't just staying inside the classroom, it's spilling out. It's getting deeper and more complicated. It's now about politics and finance on a massive scale.
We have to talk about the iron triangle.
The iron triangle of higher education. That sounds ominous, like the Bermuda Triangle.
It kind of is. The theory, which Dr. Gulam attributes to Kim and Collins, is that in higher ed policy, you have a triangle with 3 points: access, cost, and quality.
Okay.
And the theory is that you can usually have 2 of those things, but you can never have all 3 at the same time.
Walk me through that. Give me an example.
Okay, so you could have high quality and high access, a great education for everyone, but it will be incredibly expensive. It will have a high cost either for the student or the taxpayer.
Makes sense.
Or you can have low cost and high access cheap education for everyone, but the quality will inevitably suffer. Class sizes will explode, resources will be thin.
And right now, what's happening to the triangle?
Right now, current government policies are breaking the triangle entirely. We are trying to force high access and low cost, at least for the state, and the result is that quality is collapsing, and the entire cost is being shifted onto the individual student in the form of debt.
Which brings us directly to the student debt crisis.
Dr. Gulum mentions the $1.5 trillion student debt crisis in the United States. And he makes the point that this isn't just a financial number on a spreadsheet. It's a massive psychological weight on an entire generation.
He calls them indentured servants of the labor market.
It's a strong phrase, but think about the psychology. If you graduate with $100,000 in debt, do you have the luxury of taking a few years to study philosophy? Do you have the freedom to take a risk on a creative project that might fail?
No. You need a job, immediately. And not just any job. You need a safe, high-paying job to service that debt.
Exactly. It powerfully reinforces that instrumental mindset. What is the fastest, most direct path to a paycheck? That mindset kills deep learning. It kills curiosity and the willingness to explore. You become intensely risk-averse. And risk-averse people do not innovate.
And then, as if the financial pressure wasn't enough, we have the political pressure layered on top. This is where things get really heated in the analysis.
This is a very sensitive but absolutely critical part of Dr. Gulam's analysis. He looks at the current political climate, particularly using the U.S. as a case study, and he discusses the rise of a powerful strain of anti-intellectualism.
He mentions the Trump administration specifically in the text as an example.
He does. He uses it as an example of a fundamental shift in how the state views the university. For a long time, the model was university as a partner. The government and the university work together to build the future, to win the space race, to grow the economy.
And now?
Now, increasingly, the model is university as an ideological enemy.
What are the specific examples he cites? Because that's a very big claim to make.
He points to several things. Threats to tax the endowments of wealthy private universities. He points to federal investigations into civil rights violations, which, in this political context, are often used as leverage against what are termed woke policies on campus.
And he mentions some big legal settlements, right?
He does. He specifically mentions the 2025 settlements with Cornell and Brown. The text points to a $30 million penalty for Cornell and a massive $200 million agreement with Columbia. These are all framed as accountability measures.
But Dr. Gulam argues they function as a form of ideological control. The government is stepping in to police the culture and the speech of the campus itself.
Yes, and regardless of where you stand on the politics of it all, this has a massive impact on public trust.
It creates a feedback loop of distrust, I'd imagine.
Exactly. He cites some staggering Gallup data. Public confidence in higher education dropped from 57% in 2015 to just 36% in 2024.
Wow. That is a free fall. From a solid majority trusting the institution to barely a third.
It shows that the university is under siege from all sides. The corporations are mad about skills, the students are mad about debt, and now the politicians are mad about ideology. It's being attacked from the left, the right, and the center.
It feels pretty hopeless, to be honest. We've just painted a picture of a system that is broken structurally, financially, and culturally, so Is there a way out? Or do you just sit back and watch it crumble?
Lass. Well, we wouldn't be doing a deep dive if we didn't at least look for the light at the end of the tunnel. And Dr. Gulam does explore potential solutions. He doesn't just leave us in the ruins.
Okay, good. Hit me. What are the alternative models?
First, he looks at some existing theories that try to navigate this new world. One is the idea of collective entrepreneurship from a sociologist named Burton Clark.
Collective entrepreneurship. How is that different from the run it like a business entrepreneurship we just spent an hour bashing?
The key difference is the word collective. Clark's idea is that universities can be entrepreneurial and innovative, but they have to do it as a community, with the primary goal of protecting their core academic values. It's not about selling out to the highest corporate bidder. It's about finding clever ways to fund your mission without losing your soul.
Okay, so being market savvy, but sticking together as an academic community, not letting the market divide and conquer the different departments.
Right. Then there's another model called academic capitalism by Slaughter and Rhodes. They're a bit more pragmatic. They basically acknowledge that the market is here to stay. We can't turn the clock back to the 1950s. But they argue for consciously protecting a public space within that capitalist framework.
Like creating a nature preserve inside a bustling city.
That's a great analogy for it. Acknowledging the reality of the city, but fighting tooth and nail to keep these safe harbors for pure research, critical thought, and teaching that don't have an immediate commercial application.
But Dr. Gulam also quotes someone who's a bit more pessimistic,
Right.
a guy named Marginson.
Yes, Simon Marginson. And his verdict is pretty bleak. He says, quote, "The dream is over."
Ouch. That sounds final.
He argues that the old ideal of the great public university, like the California Master Plan from the 60s, which saw education as a public good and a right for everyone, is essentially dead. He says hyper-individualism has killed it. We no longer see education as a public good that benefits all of society. We see it as a private good that just helps me get a better job.
So if the dream is over, what is Dr. Ali Galoom's final verdict? What is his proposed solution? Because if the alignment strategy is clearly failing, what on earth do we do instead?
This, for me, is the most powerful and important part of the entire article. He argues quite forcefully that we cannot solve this crisis by aligning more with the market.
Which is what every politician and CEO is telling them to do. More internships, more corporate partnerships, more vocational training.
Exactly. He says that doing more of that just accelerates the crisis. It's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. You're just digging the hole deeper.
So first rule holds, stop digging.
We have to do more than that. We have to completely change our thinking. And his conclusion is this: to produce the thinking that the market so desperately needs, the university must regain its institutional independence.
Institutional independence, that sounds like a declaration of war almost.
It is, in a way. He's arguing that the university needs distance from the market. It needs to be a place that is apart from the day-to-day hustle and bustle of the economy. Because only by being apart, by having that critical distance, can it generate the critique, the perspective, and the truly novel creativity that the market actually craves, but cannot produce itself.
That is the Bose-Ann solution he talks about.
Yes, we need to find a new, healthier balance where the university serves the economy by being independent of it, not by being subservient to it.
It's like if you hire a consultant for your business, you don't want them to just come in and tell you what you want to hear. You hire them precisely because they are an outsider. You pay them to stand outside your company and look at it with fresh, critical eyes.
That is the perfect way to put it. If the university just becomes another training department for corporations, it loses all of its unique value. It becomes redundant. But if it remains a protected space for independent thought, it produces the kind of minds that can actually transform those corporations from the outside in.
That is a profound shift in perspective. It flips the entire alignment argument completely on its head. Instead of getting closer to business to be more useful, the university needs to step back.
It does, and it requires immense courage. It requires university leaders to stand up to politicians and donors and say, we are not a factory. We are not a shopping mall. We are a university, and that means something different, something more valuable.
So let's try to wrap this all up. We've unpacked a huge amount today.
We have. We've traveled from the post-war boom of the 1950s all the way to the projected crises of 2025.
We started with that all too familiar feeling of the competency gap, that Sunday night dread. And we've learned it's not because schools are too academic, but ironically because they've become too corporate.
We trace the history from massification, which opened the doors, to credentialism, which turned the degree into a status symbol. We saw how new public management in the 80s turned the student into a customer and the campus into a McDonald's.
We looked at the central devastating paradox. The market demands unique thinkers but forces universities to build standardized factories. And we saw how this educational Taylorism is crushing the very creativity we say we need to survive.
And we concluded with Dr. Ghulam's core argument, that the only way out of this trap is for the university to reclaim its independence. That to be truly useful to society, it must, in some ways, be allowed to be useless, in the immediate transactional sense of the word.
That is a thought that's going to stick with me for a long time. To be useful, it must be independent.
It's the only way to break the cycle.
Here's a final provocative thought for you listening right now. If the market truly demands unique thinkers, people who disrupt, people who innovate, people who challenge the status quo, why do we keep voting for funding and supporting systems that demand standardized students? Why do we get mad when a university challenges our beliefs instead of thanking it for doing its job?
That really is the billion-dollar question. Are we brave enough, as a society, to support an education system that might produce people who disagree with us?
This deep dive was based on the article Modern Ekonomien Yetkinlik Krizi ve Universitet, or University and the Competence Crisis of the Modern Economy.
And a huge thank you to the author, Ali Ghulam, PhD, MCC. This was a truly insightful and courageous analysis that cuts through so much of the noise we constantly hear about skills gaps. It brings the sociology and the history back into the economic conversation.
Absolutely. And listen, if you want to dig deeper into this, and believe me, there is a lot more in his work, including all the charts and references we mentioned, you really should visit his website. It's www.aligulum.com. That is ALIGULUM.m.com. Go check it out.
It's highly recommended.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep thinking, keep questioning, and don't let the Sunday scaries win. We'll see you in the next deep dive.